Hello, and welcome to Sobercast, where we provide AA speaker meetings and workshops in podcast format. We're an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us be self-supporting by visiting Sobercast.com, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 into our virtual basket. We hope you enjoy the podcast. Have a great day.
Julie alcoholic? And yes, I'm short. Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you, Mason, for inviting me to come up here and speak. And I've never been to this part of the world before, and I know, I was very excited. And it's really pretty, it's lovely. And I want to thank Steve, I think, for picking me up from the airport. He nearly killed me 3 times, but who's counting? Oh my God, there's a car. It's a red light. Oh, sorry. So, thank you. I met Steve in Bermuda a couple of years ago. I was speaking and James was speaking and Steve was there. And he's been really good at kind of keeping up with me and calling me on my anniversary and that kind of thing. So it's so lovely to be able to see him. I think like three years ago we met. So that's kind of nice. And so my accent is Irish, and I have a bit of a cold. I'm trying to get over a cold, so I feel like I sound like you're calling a hotline or something. You know what I mean? Like turning myself on with this voice. You know what I mean? But maybe I'll buy my own CD. So just entertaining myself up here. It's nice to be here, and I like I said, my accent's Irish, and it takes a little while to get used to the accent, and hopefully by the time I'm done, you'll get it. I was speaking somewhere recently, which should be nameless, and a woman says to me, "You have an accent," and I said, "I do, yeah." And she says, "Well, where is it from?" And I said, "It's Irish." And she goes, "Have you ever been?" Like, it took everything in me just to go, yeah, I was born there. Like, what do you think I'm doing? Going home watching BBC, kind of checking it out? I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, I come from a big Irish Catholic family, and my mother had 13 children, and I know. And I'm so disappointed. And I'm the 10th. The 7 passed away and the 6 of us alive. And my mother really should have never had children. She hasn't really got a maternal bone in her body. And she knows it. It's not a news flash. And, she was on the escalator with me one day. She came over to visit me from Ireland, and because where I was born. And just I'm like, what? And this heavily pregnant woman was coming up the other direction, and my mother looks at me and looks at her and goes, "Jesus, someone had it in for her." And I go, "Mammy, maybe she wants to be pregnant." And she looked at me disgusted. "Julie, no one wants to be pregnant." So I tell you that just so you get a feeling of how warm and fuzzy I am. And how maternal I am, where I come from. So, my mother left my father, and we moved to London, and she drank in this bar on a daily basis called the White Hart, and the locals used to call it Maggots Corner, because, that's how we roll, right? And after school, I'd bring me and my younger sister to go up there, and we'd spend our evenings there, and we'd spend our weekends there, and we'd sit in the car, and she'd bring us out a bag of chips and a bottle of Coke for dinner, or we'd sit in the bar, and she was generally the only woman in there. And I learned at a very early age, like if I sat on an all Irish fella's knee, he'd give me 50 pence or a swig of his beer. And I'd like to think, that could still happen. I could still pull out. I might not get 50 pence, but I might get a quarter or something. I've been trying to keep myself in good nick, and I figure I could pull off a quarter if I ever relapsed. And but I say that because I learned at a very early age how to live in a bar. Like that, like I'm very, very comfortable. I'm a bar drinker, I'm a bar fly. I don't see the point in not being that unless I'm trying to curb some of the consequences of bar drinking. And I hate that when you come out of blackout and you're in the bar again. You're like, damn, how did I get here again? Last time I remembered I was in my room. It's like, oh my God. So that's just there's nothing more I love than sitting at a bar stool and drinking, listen to some country music and shooting pool and staying there. And I don't want you to speak to me. I just want to be there. And because you annoy me, and so I started to kind of independently drink when I was like 10, and what that means is I started to steal booze from my mother's liquor cabinet. And I was at home in Ireland in August, and she still has this liquor cabinet. And you open it, and it's got like a magnet, and it makes a click noise. And I thought it was a gift from Jesus that I could open that without the magnets going off. Like I was skilled, like at an early age. And my mother used to smuggle over your moonshine, what we call in Ireland is poitín. And she used to smuggle over poitín in statues of the Holy Virgin Mary. And the water bottle statues, you screw the head off Mary, you put a bit of holy water. You drink it when you're feeling a little queer, and I drank a lot of it, and she'd empty out all the holy water and she'd put in the poitín because it's clear like the moonshine, and she'd put Mary's head back on, and we'd go through customs, going from Ireland to London, and she looked like just an Irish religious woman with all these children and these statues of Mary in the back, and it's hilarious, I think of her back, crazy, and so I'd open that cabinet and I'd look for the crown, on Mary's head, and I'd find it, and I'd take Mary down, I'd screw the head off Mary, I'd have a swig, I'd have a swig of this poitín, and you actually can't breathe when you drink it. You're like, like the veins are popping out your head, your eyes are going red, but it's going to be worth it if you just hang on in there, just hang on in there. I'd put Mary's head back on and put her in the cupboard, and I'd be delighted with myself for about 20 minutes. Like I'd be dancing around the kitchen, like it's so good, and I can breathe now. And my uncle would have been over, and I'd be smoking his cigar butts and the little cigarettes and all that, and I'd be delighted for about 20 minutes, and it'd wear off, and I'd go back to the cupboard. Like that's how it was for me. Like when I think about my drinking, I don't know about this invisible line business. I don't know about that. I know when I started independently drinking, I wanted to do that all the time. And my drinking, I can sum it up like this. Like when I'm not drinking, I'm thinking about drinking. And when I'm not drinking and thinking about drinking, I'm getting over drinking. Obsession. From the age of 10. For me, I was very intense as a child. There was lots of stuff going on in my family home that should never go on, and I was really, really intense and concerned a lot. And when I drank, I suddenly didn't care about you, your sad little life and your sad little opinion, and I suddenly became arrogant, which I loved. I mean, I loved that kind of arrogance, and that indifference. My first step forward was super small, and I realized afterwards, because I was just so indifferent, I didn't care about you. I pretended I cared about you, but as soon as you left, you were gone out of my mind, and so it was small. I didn't really care for people, and I started to kind of, and I always share this, and you don't have to identify if you're new, but I like to share. It's amazing how many people identify, but as soon as I started drinking, I used to start cutting myself, tapes and razor blades and anything to get my hands on, and it was all a big secret. And so I did that all the way through my drinking, and I would hide it all the time. And so I share that with you because partly it kept me sober for a long time, and secondly, for me it was I was really unwell from the gate, and when I look back at that, I'm like, yeah, that's not social drinking. And I'd go to school, and there was a little corner store at school, and I'd go over at lunchtime on my lunch break, and when I was like 13, 14, 15, I'd buy 4 cans of wine. Like, I don't think I'd ever even really seen a grape, you know what I'm saying? But I'd buy these 4 cans of wine, I'd bring them back to the toilets at school, because that's how I roll. I'd drink them, I'd crack open those, and I'd get them down before, and I'm not a sharer. So I was doing plenty of that at home. I'm not sharing my own booze. And so I'd lock myself in the cubicle alone, and I'd drink these 4, and I'd go back to class. Now, I'm cursed being Irish, because as soon as I have a drink, I go red from here, like all the way up. And my eyes are like backup lights or something, like beep, beep. Or have you ever seen like piss holes in the snow? Have you ever seen that? Like that. They're like whoop, whoop, whoop. And so like I'm bright red and I'm like that. So I'm not hiding anything. I'm not like a classy drunk. And of course, if you haven't figured out already, I have a mouth and a half on me. So it's an issue. And so I got into a fair bit of trouble at school, and I left school and I went to I worked for a hospice. Worked for a hospice in the East End of London, and I had no education when I left school. Education was not important. When I was raised with a lot of violence and all that kind of stuff. But my mother was involved in some criminal activity, and so as long as we didn't bring the cops to the house, we were good. Education was not important. My father was illiterate. My mother was semi-illiterate. Nobody in my family has any education. So that wasn't important. Street smarts was important where I come from. And so, school wasn't important. I was good at sports and that kind of stuff. And I, whatever, music. But I was really not interested, and it was never encouraged. And so I left school and started working in the East End of London as an auxiliary nurse. And I worked in this hospice, and I was like 2 doors down. Do you remember, anybody ever remember that Dolly Parton song? 2 doors down, they're laughing and drinking and having a party, and 2 doors down, they're not aware that I'm around. And I'd be like, that'd be me, because I was 2 doors down from the ward, and I'd be drinking, thinking that nobody's aware that I'm here and I'm on my own. And I asked them if they would put me in, on the floor. It was run by the Irish Sisters of Charity, this place, and I'd asked if they'd put me on the floor with all the other sisters, because I was going to enter religious life, yes. And so I so scary. And so they said, of course. And I was only there 2 days, and I'm listening to Guns N' Roses. I'm drinking a bottle of whiskey and cut myself. And I'm drinking, Guns N' Roses, turn around, bitch, I got use for you. Besides, you ain't got nothing better to do, and I'm bored, and I'm crazy. And Sister Anna tap on the door, Julie, love, are you okay? And I'm like crazy. I'm on my own in there, and I was so crazy there. I stayed there 3.5 years, and oh my God, it's so crazy. And I was, when I first started there, I would drink with the other girls, and then they're all Irish girls, and then a couple of months into it, now I see it was alcoholism isolating me, because now I'm thinking, I'm entertaining these women all day. I'm not drinking with them as well, right? So I'd find out where they were going, and I'd go somewhere different. And also I didn't like that they put their makeup on and they want to go, I just want to go to my local. I just want to go across the street, because that's what I want. I want to go across the street. I want to get locked in after hours, where we clean up some ashtrays and we play the jukebox low, and we drink until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. That's what I'm at. I'm not at like normal women my age be going out dancing and makeup and all that kind of stuff. Women my age kind of annoyed me. They're so irritating. And my drinking really took off in a powerful way, And I was in this little room, it was a 6x3, and I had a big wardrobe and a huge padlock on it. And on the top was like my booze, my whiskey and all that kind of stuff, my razor blades, and then my clothes thrown in the bottom. And that's how I lived. And my bin was immaculate. My trash can, I have to talk American. My trash can was immaculate. I'd never use it, and I was really everything looked good apart from that cupboard. When you open that cupboard, it was complete mess. And Sister Anne used to be next door, and at night we had this thing where we'd put our bins out at the door at night, and the domestic staff would clean in the morning, so we'd put our trash cans out, and I'd finish all my empties and I'd put them in Anne's bin, Sister Anne's bin. And in the morning, I'd hear the domestic staff, I don't know why they're all from Cork, but I'd hear them saying to each other, Jesus, girl, did you see Sister Anne's bin? I think she's a bit of an alkie. And I'm like I just thought it was hilarious. Like, you could eat out of my bin, you know what I mean? But I tore that woman, like, her reputation, everyone was like, like, I just thought it was funny. I thought it was funny. And, isn't it? And, you know, I woke up one morning, I just bought this bright, glow-in-the-dark job, cherry tracksuit. I mean, I'm talking glow-in-the-dark. You could turn off the lights now and find me if I had that thing on me, right? So I wake up one morning, it's a Puma cherry tracksuit. I think I bought it in blackout, and that was all I ever used to wear. And I had my hair shaved on a number 1 because I was getting really fearful about where I was drinking. I was drinking in the East End of London, and I thought if I had my hair shaved on a number 1 and this cherry tracksuit, nobody would know I was female, and I could, you know what I mean, butch it up a little. And now you can't really tell from where you're sitting, but you know, I'm kind of womanly, and. In fact, you know, I kind of got a set of twins under my top here, and it's a problem. And so, like, no cherry tracksuit was covering that up, you know what I'm saying? It's like, but I thought it was in my delusion. And so I'd go over and start drinking, and I'm bright red, and I've got my cherry tracksuit on, my hair shaved. And then I go back over to church for evening vespers. And all the sisters, the real sisters, would be up the front. And I'd think, poor girls, poor sisters, you know what I mean, they can't hold a tune. And I'd be there singing at the back, you know, and I'm like, Salve Regina, Mater Misericordiae, Vitae Dulcedo, Espes Nostra Salve. Like, I'm thinking, that's not, I'm helping the sisters out, you know what I mean? But they'd be looking at me like, what the hell? Like, we're just such a joke drinking, and we just think we're all out in a bag of chips, and... You know, I was horrified, that kind of thing. And like, when I look back, I'm like, oh my God, really? So my drinking took on this idea that I tried to control and enjoy my drinking, and what a torture that is. I mean, what torture that is. You know, like, that doesn't work for me. And I don't want to, frankly, try and control my drinking. Like, I'm not having a good time when I like to get drunk to the point where I can't feel my legs. And some kind gentleman's helping me off the bar stool. I'm like, oh, where are we going? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't, like, the big book talks about, you know, being, you know, insane, more or less insanely drunk. That's how I like to drink. It's how I've always liked to drink. I don't understand the idea of not drinking like that. And I'd promised myself I'm only going to have 6 drinks tonight, and I'd get to the bar, and you know, I'd start drinking. I wouldn't even taste the first one. It's gone straight down. And then the second one, I'm getting settled in. The jukebox is starting to play. And now I'm already crying into my drink because I know I've only got 4 left. And like, I haven't even finished the second one yet. And now I'm sizing up the room because I'm good at that. Thinking, who can I get some booze off? And it's generally men who are older than my father. But I know. Thank God for blackout is what I say. So, you know, my drinking was crazy, and I was getting into a lot of trouble. I was going back to the nurses' quarters, and I was screaming and shouting, and I was cutting myself so badly I couldn't stop the bleeding, and I was using my chair as a toilet, and I was really in a bad way, and regularly. That was like, I don't know if it was 7 nights a week, but it was pretty damn close, and there was people were strapping me down. I was becoming so violent, and very violent in booze. And like, I'm 20 years of age. And, you know, I had this moment, like, I went to Australia. I saw this advert for Castlemaine Forex, and I thought, that looks like a good place to go. And Castlemaine Forex looks good. And I go to Australia, and I land in Australia, and I go to the Great Barrier Reef, one of the 7 wonders of the world. And I'm 20 years of age, and I'm on this glass-bottom boat in one of the 7 wonders of the world. And there's girls my age, and they're in bikinis, right? And they're like, ooh, let's go snorkeling, huh? Right, you know how they do. And I'm thinking, look at those silly cows. Look at them. Like, I've got to take their inventory, right? So I'm sitting there with a long-armed sweater on because I've been drinking, and so when I drink, I cut myself. So I'm covering my arms up, and I've got a can of Foster's in my hand. And the truth is that I'm too embarrassed about my body to put a swimsuit on, let alone a bikini. Like, I'm awkward. Now, I look back at when I was 20 years of age, and I was banging. You know what I'm saying? Like, but when I'm 20, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so fat. So I've got my big sweater on, and I'm drinking a can of Foster's, and I'm watching how the sun is hitting the kangaroo on the can of Foster's, and I'm taking pictures, and it's such a beautiful thing. Oh my God, like. That blue is so special, that blue on that can of Foster's. And the silver kangaroo and the little silver stars. Oh my God, it's like a lover. Like, I remember every sublime detail of that can and how the sun hits off it. Now, I'm on the 7 wonders of the world. I have lots of pictures of that can of Foster's, and I have not one picture of the Great Barrier Reef. Like, obsession. So I come back from that trip, and I try to control and enjoy my drinking, and I try to think about, okay, I'm going to swim 100 laps every day. I'm a swimmer. I've always been a swimmer. Still am a swimmer. I swim a couple of miles a week. Quietens my head. It keeps my head very quiet. I like it. It's just quiet. Because I'm not a joiner. So I like to swim alone where it's quiet. And I do that about 4 times a week. And so I'm swimming 100 laps in 80 minutes. And then I'm going double whiskey back to work. And people will say, because I'm lit up, they're saying to me, have you been drinking? And I'd say, well, can you swim 100 laps in 80 minutes? They're like, what? And I go, I didn't think so. When you can, get back to me. Like the arrogance, like that was like my plan. Like that was how I was going to defend my drinking. And I had this moment of clarity when I was 21. I just turned 21, and somebody had upset me, and frankly, it's not difficult. Like 0 to 60 in a heartbeat. Boom! Like it's been really hard sober. And because people just, they're just irritating. And I've had to work really hard at some of my major defects of character. And I have this moment of clarity. I come out, and I'm in my room. Somebody had upset me. I get my bottle of whiskey down. I'm drinking my whiskey, and I'm looking out the window. And I'm singing Patsy Cline, Today I sat alone at a window, because I was at a window. I don't want to play house. No, I don't want to play house. Like, I'm alone. There's nobody there, and this is what I'm at. And so I walk over to the mirror, to the sink, and I cut myself really badly. Boom, and I'm suddenly struck sober. Suddenly I catch eyes with myself, and I'm struck sober, and I drank a bottle of whiskey. And I remember saying to myself at that time, what am I going to do? I can't live with booze, and I can't live without it. And I picked up the drink. I started drinking for another 3.5 years. I got sober when I was 24 and a half. And I ended up working in a retreat centre with the Ursuline sisters. And they had done this room up lovely for me, and it was all going to be different. I was going to get sober. I wasn't going to hurt myself anymore. And I was going to get spiritually fit, and then I was going to enter religious life, because I really felt that's what I wanted to do. 2 days, I'm there 2 days. I'm drunk, and I smash up my room so badly, and I cut myself, and I'm throwing up so badly that they have to call the emergency doctor out. And I drank like that for 9 months. And my last drink, for me, like, I realised that booze had stopped working. There's nothing worse when you drink a bottle of whiskey and your head is wide awake and your body is drunk. Like, I'm now standing at the bar, and I can't escape my head. And, I'm at the bar, and I can't move my body. I'm so drunk, but my head is wide awake. And I'm going, oh my God, where are we? Oh my God, who is this guy? Oh my God, is that his tongue? It's like, it's like I'm playing grab ass with somebody. I don't even know, because they're buying the booze and I can't move. And oh my God, I think I'm wetting myself. And you just can't move. You just can't move, but you're wide awake. And that is a torturous place to be. And I have my last drink, and I go back to the place I should have been working, this retreat centre, and there was 60 young people there having a reconciliation service, and I was in. I'm completely in blackout. I'm a huge blackout drinker, so I know nothing about this. It was told to me, but there were 60 young people there, and I ended up apparently cutting myself so badly and going into the chapel in front of 60 young people and telling Sister Anne where to go. Yeah. I don't remember any of it. I wake up the next morning, and I'm sick. I look around the room, I've smashed my room up again. My arms are ripped to bits, and my room is all smashed up. And I walk into the bathroom, and I get on my knees, and I start to bring up blood. And I'm at that jumping off place the book talks about. Like, I make a decision to kill myself because I know booze has stopped working. And I know I'm a loser. I'm a loser, and I'm not saying that lightly. I'd never paid a bill. I'd always worked somewhere where they give you your money after everything's gone out. I'd never driven a car. I'd never had a relationship. I mean, I had stalking experiences and obsessions. I'd follow you 10 feet behind you to the park and say it was a relationship. And I had a very rich fantasy life, shall we say. And I'll probably get arrested now for it. But, so I'd never had any of those things. So I knew I was a loser, and I knew without booze I was nothing. And what do you do if you're not in the bar 24/7? I don't understand that. I really don't understand. I'm 24. I don't understand it. And I make a decision to kill myself that morning on my knees, and I go upstairs, and I'm drinking some hot water, and I'm shaking, and my arms are in bits. And a guy who had brought the group to the house was an Irish guy. And it turned out he was 9 months sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. And he 12-stepped me that morning because he saw me perform the night before. And the only reason I listened to him, because I was going to kill myself, the only reason I listened to him was because he was Irish, because I thought that was my problem. I thought everybody I lived with was British. And, I know there's a couple of British people here tonight, but like we all know the British are kind of, anal, and that's the problem, because the Irish, we know how to roll, you know what I'm saying? We play. And that was part of my problem. And so I listened to him, and he 12-stepped me, and he brought me to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I hadn't had a drink for 4 days, which is the longest I'd ever gone since I was 10. And I go to this meeting, it's a real smoky meeting, and it was April 1993, which is my sobriety date. And I go into this room, it's real smoky, and people are swearing and carrying on, and I liked it immediately, because I like the swearing, and just like it's comfortable. And it was truly anonymous. You could really not see your hand in front of your face, Loved it. And there was a woman there who started speaking to me after the meeting, and she gave me a big book, and I don't like women very much at this time, That changed. But, I don't like women very much. They're kind of suspicious, and they're not as friendly as the men. Like, the men are really friendly, and I don't like women. And she gave me her number, and I'm suspicious immediately. Like, I don't do kind, and I don't do friendly. And I know, so back to the warm and fuzzy business, and I just don't do it. I do now, I'm just super friendly. But at that time I didn't, and so I was really rough. Like the book talks about that, really unlovable, right? The alcoholic in these cups is an unlovely creature. And I was just a bitch and arrogant and sarcastic. And I shared at my very first meeting, because, not saying I'm an alcoholic or anything, I'm just saying I drink and I can't stop drinking. That's all I'm saying. And people were really friendly afterwards, and they gave me a big book and gave me the number. And I woke up the next morning, and that was the 5th day I'd ever gone without a drink, and I'd never gone that long. And I'm so crazy. I'm like, oh my God, this AA business really works, right? Because I'm crazy. And I have to say, I called Diane. I started to call Diane, and I have to say that, I'm sorry if you knew, but my experience is that when I got sober, that intensity I had as a child, when I stopped drinking, came back tenfold. Like, I was intense. And for the first 10 years of my sobriety, I had 2 ulcers, because I'm concerned a lot. And it's a problem. And, I was so intense. I was living in this house, and people were like, morning, Julie. And I'm like, oh my God, did I tell you this happened to me when I was 5? People were like, what? Like crazy. And I walked everywhere. I was either really, really angry or really, really depressed. Like, I had nothing in between. And I walked everywhere. I used to walk to this Wednesday night meeting. It was 2.5 hours. I live in California now, and I have sponsees, one of them was here tonight, who I'm like, you need to walk to the meeting. Oh, it's half an hour walk. I don't care. Like, you live in California, for Christ's sake. Walk and I'll meet you there. And she actually gave me a CD one year, that song Nobody Walks in L.A. Like, who knew? Like, who knew? I didn't know that. I'm always learning. And I used to walk 2.5 hours through a forest, I might add, to this meeting. And I was so angry in my cherry tracksuit. So angry. And people would toot the horn and I'd be like, because I'm like, they want a piece of this, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, nobody, I look back, I go, trust me, honey, nobody wanted a piece of that, you know what I'm saying? But at the time, I thought they wanted a piece of that. And I'd get to the meeting and people would say, Irish guys would go, Jesus, Julie, I saw you down the road and I tooted my horn, you gave me the bird, and I thought, feck her, let her walk. And it was my first experience of having to be accountable. Because if you offended me, or if you looked at me the wrong way, I'd tell you your character, as we say in Ireland. I'd tell you what I thought of you. And then you'd try to speak and I'd go, shh, don't speak, you'll spoil it. And I'd walk off. So I'd never listen to you. Like, I've said what I need to say, you can be quiet now. And I'd wander off. And so it was my first experience of being accountable. Like, I was horrified because my ego started to come back and they were like, Jess, you get... I'm like, oh my God. Like, it was my first experience of not automatically just doing what I felt like. You know what I mean? Like, it was like my first practice. So I'd walk to that meeting, cars would be tooting, and I'd be like, oh. And I'm not really a joiner, never have been. I'm slightly antisocial, really, still. I have to work very hard. And I just want to get to a meeting when it starts. I don't want to have to talk to you beforehand. And I still feel like that. I don't do that, but that's how I feel. Nobody cares how I feel, apparently. So my sponsor tells me. So I was raised in a home, there was no discipline. Like, there was a lot of violence, but no discipline. We just did whatever we felt like doing. And so when I got sober, people would say, well, could you help me put away the chairs? And I'd be like, I'll put my chair away. And they'd say, well, could you help pick up the ashtrays? And I go, I don't smoke. Like, well, could you help serve tea and coffee? I don't drink hot beverages. Like, which is a lie, I did, but I just didn't want to do anything. Like, I just don't understand this business of helping somebody out. And, like what? I think you're taking advantage of me, and that's not going to happen. No. You've got me confused with someone else. Like, I mean, I'd say that to people. Really warm and fuzzy, I'm talking to. And I started to learn that, in the fellowship, like, I had to start doing things, because it gets lonely. It gets lonely when you're that kind of abrasive, as some of you probably know. It's lonely, and I'm not interested in this business of sponsorship and all that carry on. I'm not interested. If I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. Like, I'm a grown woman. Really, I'm going to ask you? No. And so, for the longest time, I stayed sober on fellowship, just fellowship, and in London, it was easy to. I got sober in London, so it was easy to do that. And I got involved in a relationship when I was about 2 years sober. I'm still in that. Actually, we got married last year. We'll be 20 years together in December. And she's in the fellowship too. She's the same age, same length of sobriety. She's actually speaking in Washington this weekend while I'm here, so it's kind of nice. We do a lot of fellowship together. We went to Cincinnati last weekend to a convention as well. She says you'd get less for murder. I don't know. Like, I'm like, 20 years. She's like, yeah, you get less for murder, wouldn't you? Like, it's 15 years apparently for murder. So anyway, we've been together 20 years. But when we were together about 3 years, she said something to me that I didn't like, and I kicked the door in her face. Yeah. And she shot back. Now, she could kill me. She's a black belt in judo. And thank God she's passive. And she shot back, and I suddenly caught eyes with her, and I realized I was suddenly embarrassed. Like, I can sound good in Alcoholics Anonymous, but what am I doing when no one's watching? What am I doing when no one's looking? The idea of integrity, the idea of doing things when no one, like cleaning a little coffee mug up for somebody, or putting something in the trash, or I tried to clean down the counters at work and do all that kind of stuff. Just just because I tried to build some integrity. It's like character is built in the dark, and step 6 and 7, right? And that's and I realised I caught eyes with her and I slid down the wall. I was so embarrassed. And I got a sponsor. That'll do it to you, right? God, it's this bad. I suppose I better get a sponsor. And I got sober and I couldn't really read or write. And I couldn't really read or write. And a friend of mine who was a nun helped me with my ABCs. And she showed me how to use a dictionary. And she showed me how to read a newspaper. And I started to kind of be able to read in AA. And I was about 3 years sober. I started to read the big book. And I'll never forget it. I remember reading, in the big book where it says, half measures of ale does nothing. I thought for 3 years when people read that they were saying half measures of ale did nothing. And so, I'd be in meetings going, yeah, Julie, alcoholic. No, half measure of ale never did me any good. What the hell? You moron. When I read that, I was horrified. I started to get a sponsor to do some step work. And, I want to say that that woman, Diane, who gave me her number, they always say, be careful how you treat the newcomer because they could be your sponsor one day. And Diane, I wouldn't have stayed sober if it wasn't for Diane. And my 25th birthday was in September, and I was 5 months sober. And she bought me a bottle of perfume, and I was embarrassed. I don't do kind, and at that time, and she bought me a bottle of perfume. I don't want to open it in front of her. I'm awkward and uncomfortable, and she gives me a hug, which just is creepy to me. And I go to my room and I check out what it was. It was a bottle of perfume, and I was not exactly girly. This is very girly now. I've even got mascara on tonight, and it's a lot. And I checked out how much the bottle of perfume was, and it was an expensive bottle of perfume because I wanted to see how much I was worth to Diane. And I wore that brand for a long, long time. And about 5 years sober, Diane relapsed, and she asked me to sponsor her, and I did. And I don't know what's happened to Diane since. But so I would have never stayed sober if it wasn't for her. Her kindness, it frightened me, but I was curious, and I just didn't understand it. And I really didn't understand when people were kind. And I got this sponsor 3 years sober. She was an Irish woman, and she scared me because she was kind. And I realised that's the problem, Judy. You can't be kind. People would call and want to speak to my partner. Hi, is Hilda there? I'm like, oh, because she's kind. At that time I don't do kind. I'm really rough. This is my 100%, and I expect you to give me 100%. And if it doesn't look like my 100%, I'm going to let you know about it. That's how I was. So rough for everybody and so rough with myself. And this woman was really kind. She'd meet me, she'd give me a hug, and I'd be like, oh my God, she's touching me. And she helped me, and she was kind to me, and I didn't understand it, but I knew I needed to soften a little bit. And I went through the steps, and I have to say, step 4 was so hard for me. I was always the pursued and never the pursuer. I was always the victim. I was only defending myself. And trust me, there was a lot I could complain about. There's a lot of stuff that happened in my life that should have never happened that I really was powerless over. And I was stuck in that. But the fourth column of the step 4 really helped me. And I looked at that. It was very painful. And I got to a point where, I really blamed my mother for everything. She was still drinking and carrying on, and blamed her for everything. And it so happens I went back to school at the same time. I ended up getting a degree, a bachelor's degree, and I called her and told her I was getting this degree. And I was getting this degree in Canterbury Cathedral. And we drove down there. My mother had flown from Ireland to London and then got the train down to Canterbury. And I hadn't seen her before the ceremony. And I knew the steps were working for me because when I went out there in my hat and gown and the trumpets were blowing, I was delighted with myself 5 years sober. And I catch eyes with my mother, and she's really tore back. She's hungover, same as she's always been. And she was rough. And I knew the steps were working because I was just delighted she made it. I was absolutely delighted she made it. And it was such a change for me. It was like such a spiritual awakening right in that moment. And I brought her back to the airport that night, and I gave her a hug, which we don't do in our family. And I hugged her, and she just said to me, I'm really proud of you. And she left. And I really worked hard on that relationship with my mum, I tell my mother I love her, and it's hard. She's got some dementia right now, and I go home to Ireland every 4 months and try and take care of her. It's just hard. I call her on the phone, and it's really painful. It's a painful experience for me, and I've tried to build that relationship with my mother, and she tells me she loves me too, which is so lovely. My other siblings are looking at like what? But the fellowship is like, I've wanted to soften here. I was so hard. And over the years, my father was a different story. Like, I made a decision not to have any contact with my father, and there's a lot of damage done there. And I had moved from hating him once I did the step work to being numb. And I was like, God's time and not mine for step 9 to face him. And so a couple of years gone by, and he had a brain hemorrhage, and I went home to Ireland. I wasn't going to go home. I came to California on vacation, and somebody said, you really need to go home, and I did. I went home to Ireland, and I went to the hospital that day, and let me tell you, I wanted to drink. I did not want to face my father 9 years sober. I didn't want to face him. I was so overwhelmed by the whole experience. I was desperate to have a drink, and I did face him. I went to the hospital, and he was fast asleep in bed, and the nurse says, do you want me to wake him? And I started to cry, and the anger came up in me, and I was like, no. And I left. He never knew I was there. And I went to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous that night, and somebody said, why don't you read page 552 of the big book? And so I read that, which talks about praying for somebody if you're resentful, And I went back to the hospital next day, and he was awake, and he was in a state. He'd had this brain hemorrhage, and I wiped his mouth, and I let him touch me, hug me. I brought him to the garden, and we had nothing to say. And I went to a meeting again that night, and then the next day I went back, and I went right up to him, and I said, I'm going to leave now, Daddy, and you won't see me again. Like, I'd made that decision through sponsorship and outside help that I was going to sever that relationship, and it was the right thing to do. And I said, I'm going to leave now, Daddy, and you won't see me again. And he started to cry, and I left. And he just says, I'm going to miss you now. I said, yeah. And I left, and I realized, I cried. I went into the chapel, and I cried for a long, long time. But I realized that I'd been holding on to such anger and resentment. Like, I didn't realize that he had kind of shaped my whole idea of men, my whole idea of how I relate to people. That kind of hardness. I'm going to get the boot in before you get the boot in, because I know what time it is, and you're not going to take advantage of me. That's all there is to it. And I realized at that moment that I don't need that anymore. It left me. And my father died 3 years ago, and my brother called me and asked me to go home for he said, oh, Daddy's dying, and I decided to fly home to Ireland, and my flight was delayed in LAX. It got cancelled, and I'm lining up for about 2.5 hours with 400 other people, and I get a call. My sister says Daddy died. So he died before I got there. And it was really, it was interesting to me, my experience. I cried the whole time, and caught me off guard. And they flew me to Chicago, and they flew me 10 hours here and 10 hours there, and I cried the whole time. And it was really interesting. I called my sponsor, and I was complaining to her about being trapped behind, security. And I didn't get to Ireland until Sunday, and she said to me, do you think, she says, it was God's way of giving you an opportunity to grieve how you need to grieve before you met your family? I'm like, no. Because I think I'm just being punished, you know what I'm saying? And God blows. But when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay. So I go home, and I go to the funeral, and the last day I'm leaving, and I'm respectful, and my brother goes, oh, we weren't expecting you. And I don't have to explain myself to people. That's the beautiful thing. That's the freedom about being sober. I'm like, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I be here? And that's it. End of conversation. I don't need to explain anymore. And so I go to the grave site, and I buy my father these big biscuits that he's always used to love, and he was always too tight to buy them himself. And I walk into the cemetery, and I hear my father, and I don't care if it sounds weird. I don't care. I'll never see you guys again. But I walk into the cemetery, and I hear my father saying, oh, Jesus, you bought me my favourite. And I remember saying, yeah, you're always too tight to buy them yourself, And I sat down at the grave, and I cried, and had a good conversation with my father, and I really felt like... I said to him, I really hope you understand why I made the decisions that I made. I'd like to think that when people pass away, they get to see the whole picture, not just the piece that you did to me. And it was a very healing experience for me. And I came back, and, I felt very free. And I wouldn't have changed anything about that experience, that relationship, and, how I handled it, I should say, in sobriety. There'd be a lot I'd change about it. But, For me, I went back to school. I was in Los Angeles. I went back to school and I got a master's, and I worked during the day and I got a master's degree. And then when I met Steve, I was doing a doctorate, and I just graduated with a doctorate in May. And it's so weird. I go to my boss, do I need to say Dr. Julie when I call? And she's like, yeah, well, you are, aren't you? And I go, oh, okay, like it's odd to me. But it's like, here's the thing, like on my own, I can't get off a bar stool. I can't find the restroom. I can't do any of that stuff. I didn't realize when I got sober that I was ambitious and I was driven. And I'm not smart by any means. I'm just learned the disciplines here in Alcoholics Anonymous to show up, to have some integrity, to build. I get a commitment and I stick to that commitment. Like those things have really helped me in my life. Like if I live in Alcoholics Anonymous and apply what I learn here and practice what I learn, social skills and all that kind of stuff, and I take it out into my world, it seems to be very successful. So I visit the outside world and I live here. And, for me, this is how I wake up in the morning. I wake up still anxious. Like my partner wakes up with a song, which I think is weird. But I wake up going, oh, my God, what day is it? And who wants something from me? Because someone wants something from you every day. And I get up, I have a cup of tea, and I do some prayer meditation. And that's not fancy. All I do is read page 86 to 88. I get quiet. And I realize that I'm not in charge. And I ask to be purposeful that day. And I ask that I lighten up my little corner of the world. And I'm so grateful that I have a job to go to. I have a career. I have a life. I just got out of a clean bed. Like, I'm just so grateful for those things. Like I said, life has its ups and downs. And I'm struggling with my mother a little bit. And it's painful. It's really painful. But I get to be a daughter. And I get to have some integrity. And, I get to understand that yes, there's always the right answer in Alcoholics Anonymous. And, I love, it's funny, at work they asked me to do something. I was like, well, wouldn't you prefer so-and-so? He's much better qualified. And my boss says, I'm not asking him, I'm asking you. The other staff members want you to do it. Something about how you carry yourself makes them feel confident in that. And I love that. It's like, because I learned here in Alcoholics Anonymous just to show up. And if I can't do a good turn, I try not to do a bad turn. And life is pretty good for me. I'm just trying to do the next indicated step. And most of the time I feel fairly quiet. Most of the time I feel like I don't need to defend myself against you. Most of the time you don't have that kind of power over me like you used to. And that is such a sweet spot to be in. And when I'm not in prayer meditation, when I'm not talking to sponsees, when I'm not calling my sponsor, then I start to revisit Julie and her 100% and your 100%. So I'm a very happy customer, and it's great to be here. Thanks, everybody, for letting me speak.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sobercast is ad-free, and we'd like your help in order to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help us be self-supporting by pledging $1 or $2 a month, visit Sobercast.com and look for the donate links. Thank you very much.